Okay, sorry about that. Fucking PlayStation Network cut me off. Okay. Jacopo and the head maid each carried oil lamps to light their way through the hall. At the far end stood a door, not opened in countless years. Just an ordinary wooden door, though, with with a simple lock. Not a heavy metal one with a complicated 3-key lock. As he unlocked the door with his master key, the head maid whispered, "Why did you bring me here?" She considered following it up with, "Were you too scared to come on your own?" But even she couldn't bring herself to make light of things in the tower's presence. I started paying more attention to you recently, after the last maid quit, and I noticed when you're not focusing on something, you're looking towards one of two places, the former rose garden or this tower. So I thought it would be best to bring you with me when I came to see the tower. I see. The inside of the tower was black as the abyss, even darker than the hall leading to it. The light from their 2 oil lamps revealed a long spiral staircase leading up. And something stirred in the long frozen heart of the head maid at the sight of that staircase. Jacopo set a foot on the first stair, pressing down on it hard in several places. It let out low creaks under his weight, but didn't seem to be in danger of breaking. That said, it was still an abandoned tower at night, and nobody knew they were here. This was a terrible idea that could go wrong at any time, and he knew it. Watching him slowly climb the stairs, the head maid's chest grew tight. For an instant, she wasn't seeing him, but someone else. They were holding her by the hand, running up and up and up, and... "Why did you want to see the tower?" she said, trying to bring herself back to the present. "Hell if I know." She tilted her head. He almost never acted without a clear reason. "All I do know is I got the strangest feeling I would find something about myself here." "I see," she said, putting on a smile. "I too have a strange feeling that I will find something of myself here." Climbing the decaying staircase was a long, arduous process. Every so often, they passed a window carved out of the stone wall. The light from the moon illuminated the path before them, guiding sinner and prisoner ever upward. After more revolutions than the head maid was able to count, the end was finally in sight. But there was one final obstacle before they could reach the door at the top. The next section of the staircase had collapsed. "Shall we head back?" the head maid asked. If they were to attempt to proceed, one of them would undoubtedly slip and take a fall straight down to hell. Surely Jacopo would realize there was no way forward and give up. But she was wrong. Leaning against the stone wall for support, he placed his right foot on what little remained of the next stair. And then he carefully guided his left foot to the next. Several slow, meticulous steps later, a chunk of stone gave out under his weight, tumbling downward into the abyss. But even that was not enough to stop his determined procession. She watched him in silence. She was not afraid that he might fall, however, because if that were to happen, then that simply meant he was fated to die here. It was an insignificant detail to her. As long as she was able to wait for her beloved to return, nothing else mattered. But he made it across the collapsed region unharmed. It seemed the mansion was not ready to be rid of him just yet. He turned around, shining his oil lamp over the gap. "You're free to wait there." "No, no," she said. "I will accompany you." She then gracefully lifted her skirt off the ground and followed the same crumbling path across the chasm he had. When she finally made it across, he gave her a smug smirk. "Damn, and here I thought you were going to float across like a ghost. I guess you really are alive." To which she responded with a little smile. They resumed their climb, soon reaching the top level of the tower. Beyond a door half rotten away sat a chamber with a single window high upon the wall. Through it shone a pillar of moonlight. The two of them entered the chamber, proceeding to the center of the room. The air inside was far colder than the autumn night they had left behind. It chilled them both to their bones, to their souls. Jacopo stood in place, gazing up at the window for some time. Then he walked up to the stone wall, dropping to his knees in front of what appeared to be nothing at all. He traced the irregular surface with his fingers, his hand slowly forming into a fist and dropping lifelessly to the hard floor. She could hardly see a trace of the powerful, wealthy businessman he was in that slouched form. He seemed so much smaller, on the verge of withering away. "Did you find that something about yourself here?" she asked, her voice carrying well in the cold, empty chamber. "Yeah," he said, his voice shaking. There was far more contained in that single syllable than she could ever hope to discern. For a moment, she thought he was crying, but from the glimpse she caught of his face, his eyes were dry, though he looked pale as a ghost. She stepped toward him, gently placing her hand upon his back. And then she spoke, breaking her personal vow to remain an observer. "If you wish to end your life here, I can offer you my hand." The man spun around to face her. There was neither anger nor surprise in his eyes, though. "Why would you say that?" I do not know, she said. Seeing you there on your knees, the words simply came out. I felt as though that was what you wanted. She lowered herself to her knees as well, so their eyes were at the same level. He flinched, but did not avert his gaze from hers. "You're right," he muttered, barely audible. "There was a time when I did want that. A long, long time ago." But still, I descended those stairs. I couldn't let myself just toss aside what I had sacrificed everything to attain. Even knowing there was only suffering to be found at the bottom? That's exactly why. I had to own it, just like I have to own my mistakes now. I see. Then I shall observe and see where this path takes you. Ah, what a wretched man, she thought, smiling. She was an experienced enough maid to know to keep that thought to herself, though. And she herself was also a wretched woman, who had wanted to die alongside her love at the top of this very tower. But in her broken mind, those memories had been transformed into a fairy tale. The full moon had begun its descent by the time they left the cold chamber. At the collapsed section of stairs, Jacopo crossed first, as he had going up. The head maid then made to follow after him, but was instead greeted to his hand extended across the gap. She tilted her head. Obviously, he was offering her assistance in crossing, but she had made it over with no difficulty the first time, so she couldn't understand why. Not to mention, the master of the house had no obligation to help a lowly maid. But bathed in the glow of the moon, her hand stretched out to take his, before she realized what had happened. They had both lost those they cared about most, and when their fingers touched, he saw a bright, spirited young woman with an infectious smile, and she saw a kind-hearted and somewhat sarcastic young man. Giselle and the slave, vestiges of their long-forgotten selves, bursting forth for the tiniest, most insignificant of moments. Michelle, to tell you the truth, I wanted nothing more than to descend these stairs with you, hand in hand. Morgana, To tell you the truth, I wanted nothing more than to go back to those days when I could still take your hand. By the time the head maid had made it across the collapsed stairs, the shadows of their old selves had disappeared without a trace. Only the maid who always wore a smile and the forlorn businessman remained there in the tower. A faint connection had formed between them, though, a shared isolation and emptiness, an empathy as similarly damaged souls. But that too would fade in time, their connection as fleeting as an autumn night. With him leading the way, and her following behind, they descended the spiral staircase together. "And what about you?" he asked. "Were you able to find that something about yourself here?" "Yes," she said. "I believe I did. But I fear it will slip through my fingers again before long." "You never struck me as the forgetful type." "I have been for some time. I have no room for new memories anymore." "Well, that's probably for the best," he said. "It would be best if you forgot what you found here as well." "Not a chance." My, she said. "You are quite the intractable one." "I could say the same about you." "Say, Master." "What is it?" "I want to tell you something before I forget the things I felt tonight." "Yeah?" "I was not terribly fond of you when we first met." "Huh, that sounds about right." "But that is not true any longer." "Is that so?" "It is. The truth is..." Wait, is this Jacopo? "The truth is, I thought you were creepy as hell at first. Didn't even want to look at you."
That sounds about right.
"But that's not the case anymore."
Is that so?"
"Yeah, it is." Alright, man. That one was actually longer than... I think that's the longest one I've read through so far. I'm tired, so I think I'm just gonna leave it with that one. And yeah, I will try to be back again tomorrow and play Final Fantasy VII Remake, so yeah. Thanks for watching, and good night.